Have you ever wondered if being the nice one, the one who always says yes, who never wants to upset anyone, could actually be the reason you feel so exhausted, so lost, so disconnected from yourself? What if I told you that what the world has praised as kindness, patience, selflessness might actually be a form of silent self-betrayal? Carl Jung said it clearly. The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely, because somewhere along the way, you were taught that being loved meant abandoning yourself. You learned to smile when you were breaking inside. You learned to say yes when every part of you was screaming no, and the world applauded you. They called you strong, kind, reliable. But your body, your soul, your nervous system, they kept the score. That constant anxiety, that exhaustion no amount of sleep ever fixes, that tightness in your chest, that overwhelming sadness, even when everything seems fine. It's not weakness, it's not overreacting, it's not being too sensitive. It's the cost of a life spent abandoning yourself, just to feel safe, just to feel loved, just to belong. And if no one has ever told you this before, I will. You were never meant to betray yourself to be loved. You were never meant to abandon yourself to feel safe. And you are not broken. There is a reason for your patterns. There is a reason for your pain. And once you see it, everything changes. Because the truth is, healing starts with boundaries. Not with becoming more, not with doing more, but with finally remembering, I am allowed to exist as I am. So right now, I want you to make a powerful declaration. Type in the comments, I am choosing myself, I am healing. Not for me, not for the algorithm, but for you, for that part of you that has waited your entire life to finally be seen, heard, and chosen. This space is for you. Here, we don't wear masks. Here, we don't abandon ourselves anymore. Here, we remember who we truly are, beyond the pain, beyond the past, beyond the patterns. So take a deep breath, because what you're about to hear could change everything. This might be the moment your healing truly begins. There's something nobody tells you about constantly being the strong one, the one who holds it all together, the one who listens, the one who's always there for everyone else, even when nobody shows up for you. On the outside, it looks like kindness, like patience, like love. But on the inside, it feels like drowning. You lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, asking yourself, why do I feel this way? Why am I always the one holding it together? When will it finally be my turn to be seen, to be heard, to be loved, without having to earn it? If this feels painfully familiar, you're not alone. And most importantly, there is nothing wrong with you. Carl Jung spent his life uncovering a truth that most people still don't know. Nothing has a stronger influence psychologically on their children than the unlived life of a parent. And yet, we carry it. The exhaustion, the anxiety, the guilt, the silent belief that somehow, I must be easy to love. I must never be a burden. But here's the truth, no one taught you growing up. You were never supposed to abandon yourself, just to be accepted. Somewhere along the way, you learned that love was conditional, that being good meant being small, that being kind meant betraying your own needs, that being easy to love meant always saying yes, even when your entire soul was screaming no. And while the world applauded your kindness, your nervous system kept the score. The tightness in your chest isn't random. The migraines, the panic in perfectly safe situations, the constant fatigue, the sense that you're always one step away from collapsing. Even when everyone else says, but you're so strong. You are strong. But strength was never supposed to look like self-abandonment. And here's where Carl Jung's work changes everything. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. This is the unconscious pattern, the invisible inheritance, the generational wound that no one talks about, the belief that being loved means betraying yourself. But it's not your fault. This isn't who you are. It's who you became in order to survive. And here's the most powerful truth of all. Healing isn't about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you were before the world taught you to forget yourself. This is why boundaries are not selfish. They are sacred. A boundary is not a wall. It's the doorway back to yourself. The moment you whisper, "No more. I choose myself now," is the moment everything starts to shift. But let me be honest with you, Zach, it's not easy when you've spent your entire life being the fixer, the peacemaker, the one who holds it all together. The moment you start choosing yourself, guilt will show up. Fear will show up. That little voice will whisper, "Who do you think you are? But hear me. That's not your truth. That's the wound speaking. A wound that didn't start with you, but became yours to heal." And this is where the journey begins. Not with forcing yourself to be more, not with striving or pleasing or hustling for your worth. It begins with coming home, to the parts of you that were never broken, only forgotten, parts that still remember. What it feels like to breathe deeply, to take up space, to speak without apologizing, to rest without guilt, to be without earning it. And maybe right now, a part of you feels this lump in your throat, this heaviness in your chest. It's not random, it's the part of you that has waited your entire life and for you to finally choose yourself. That's what this space is for, not to teach you how to become someone else, but to help you remember who you already are. So before we dive deep, if this resonates, if something in your body feels the truth of these words, drop in the comments, "I am choosing myself. I am healing. Not for me, not for anyone else, but for you, for the version of you that never gave up, even when life kept asking you to shrink." And if you feel ready to go even deeper, to understand how to break free from these patterns, how to heal your nervous system, how to reconnect with your authentic self, check the link in the description. There's a guide that I created, filled with practical tools, insights, and steps based on the teachings of Carl Jung and modern psychology. It's designed to help you navigate this journey back home to yourself. And of course, if you're someone who's walking this path of healing, of breaking generational patterns, of choosing yourself, subscribe, join this community. Because here, we don't just talk about healing, we live it, together. Take a deep breath, because what you're about to hear next might save you from 30 years of struggle, and it might just change everything. The hidden cost of self-abandonment. Let's get brutally honest. Most of us were never taught how to have boundaries, not because we were incapable, but because somewhere along the way we learned a dangerous lie, that our needs were negotiable, that our feelings were inconvenient, that our role in life was to make others comfortable, even if it meant abandoning ourselves. It didn't start with adulthood. It started when you were a child. When you sensed, even without words, that expressing your anger, your sadness, your truth came with a cost, a withdrawn parent, a cold stare, a silent treatment, a punishment, spoken or unspoken. And so, piece by piece, you started disappearing, not physically but emotionally, internally. You learned to smile when you were breaking. You learned to nod yes, while everything in you screamed no. You learned that being a good child meant becoming hyper-aware of everyone else's emotions, while completely abandoning your own. And the world applauded you for it. She's so easy. He's so helpful. You're always so reliable, so strong. But no one ever stopped to ask, at what cost? Carl Jung warned us about this hidden fracture in the psyche. He called it the split between the persona, the mask we wear to survive, and the authentic self, the person we were before the world asked us to become someone else. The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. Carl Jung. And so, the cost of survival was authenticity, but the body, it never forgets. That tightness in your chest isn't random. That gut-wrenching anxiety before disappointing someone isn't a personality flaw. That endless fatigue, even after 8 hours of sleep, isn't laziness. It's the language of a nervous system that's been living in hypervigilance for far too long. A nervous system that learned it's safer to be liked than to be real. It's safer to stay small than to risk rejection. This is not mindset. This is not simply thinking differently. This is biology. It's trauma physiology. And here's the hardest truth no one tells you. People-pleasing isn't kindness. It's a survival strategy. It's what happens when a child's authenticity is constantly traded for attachment. Because as a child, attachment always wins. You can't survive without it, but now you're no longer that child. And yet, the pattern continues. Because the nervous system doesn't know the difference between past and present. It only knows safety or threat. Every time you say yes, when your body is screaming no, your nervous system hears the same old story. If I speak my truth, I'll be abandoned. And here's how that story plays out in adulthood. You overcommit, then feel resentment, but blame yourself. But because your body still believes that your survival depends on being liked. Carl Jung understood this better than anyone. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. This is why the same patterns repeat, why you keep meeting versions of the same person, why you keep betraying yourself, even when you promised you wouldn't this time, because the unconscious wound hasn't been made conscious. But here's the truth no one told you growing up. You are allowed to have needs. You are allowed to take up space. You are allowed to be loved without abandoning yourself. Boundaries aren't walls, they're bridges. They are the sacred line where you end and someone else begins, where love becomes clean, clear, respectful. And yet, most of us were never taught how to build that bridge. We were taught that setting boundaries is selfish, that disappointing others means we've failed, that saying no makes us bad. But none of that is true, it never was. Boundaries are the language of self-love, the architecture of inner safety, the first act of remembering, I matter too. And here's what happens when you begin to set them. At first, guilt will rise, because your nervous system confuses guilt with danger. It whispers, if I say no, they'll leave. If I speak my truth, I'll be rejected. But the truth is, every time you honor yourself, every time you choose rest instead of overgiving, every time you say, this doesn't work for me, you are rewriting the story. You are teaching your nervous system something it has never learned before. It is safe to be me. This is where healing begins. Not with becoming better, or stronger, or more perfect, but with remembering that your worth was never tied to how little space you take, how quiet you are, how convenient you've made yourself to others. You are not here to be easy. You are here to be whole. How trauma quietly shapes your body, your mind, and your life. Let's go even deeper. If no one has told you this before, let me be the first. Trauma isn't what happened to you. Trauma is what happened inside of you as a result of what happened. The moment your body learned that being yourself wasn't safe, the moment your nervous system decided, in order to survive, I have to shut this part of me down. And what no one teaches us is that this isn't just emotional. It's biological, it's neurological. It lives in the wiring of your nervous system. It lives in the tension in your jaw, the tightness in your chest, the clenching in your stomach. It lives in the way your shoulders rise when someone raises their voice, or the way your hands tremble when you disappoint someone, or the way your throat closes when you try to speak a truth you were never allowed to voice. This is trauma physiology. It's not a flaw, it's not weakness, it's not brokenness, it's adaptation. A brilliant, painful, unconscious adaptation to a world that once told you, you can't be fully yourself and still be safe. Carl Jung understood this better than anyone. He knew that the psyche doesn't forget, the body doesn't forget, the subconscious doesn't forget. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. And this is exactly what happens every day for millions of people silently living inside a body shaped by old pain, because the nervous system doesn't operate on time. It doesn't know if you're 5 or 35 or 65. It only knows two things, safety or threat. When you were a child and your nervous system sensed, expressing my needs isn't safe, Disappointing others means I'll be rejected. Setting boundaries means losing love. It made a decision, a survival decision. Abandon the self to maintain attachment. And so the body adjusted. It tightened. It tensed. It suppressed. It braced for a danger that never seemed to end. And the worst part, that same nervous system is still running the show, even decades later. This is why a text message left unread can spiral you into panic. This is why someone's disappointment can collapse you into shame. This is why setting a boundary can feel like actual danger. Because to your nervous system, it is danger. And here's where it gets even deeper. When the nervous system lives in survival, the immune system suffers. Chronic inflammation rises, hormones become dysregulated. The body starts whispering, then shouting, with symptoms, the migraines that won't go away. They are the body's memory of everything you were forced to carry, but were never allowed to process. And the mind, it adapts too. Hypervigilance always finds a way to speak. Maybe it shows up as perfectionism, or people-pleasing, or procrastination, or burnout, or addiction, or numbing, through food, scrolling, shopping, alcohol, work, because numbing is easier than feeling what was once too overwhelming to survive. But here's the miracle no one told you. If the nervous system learned this, it can unlearn it. If the subconscious absorbed this story, it can rewrite it. This is the heart of healing, not bypassing, not pretending it didn't happen, not thinking positive, but slowly, gently, teaching the nervous system something it has never known before. It is safe to be me. And it begins with boundaries. Boundaries are not just about saying no to others. They are about saying yes to yourself. I will no longer betray myself to keep others comfortable. I will no longer abandon myself just to avoid disappointment. Because every time you choose yourself, every time you honor the smallest yes or the quietest no, you are sending a message to your nervous system that no one ever sent before. You are safe now. You are allowed to exist. You are allowed to be. And the more you practice this, the more the body begins to soften. The tension releases, the breath deepens, the mind calms, the panic lessens. Not because the world has changed, but because you have. This is the real healing. Not becoming someone new, but remembering who you were before the world told you to forget, is about becoming the version of you who no longer abandons yourself when the pain arises. And the truth is, it begins with boundaries. Boundaries are not walls, they are bridges. Bridges back to yourself. Bridges back to the version of you that remembers, I am worthy of being safe. I am allowed to take up space. My needs are not negotiable. Carl Jung said something that hits harder the more you sit with it. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But how can you become who you truly are if your nervous system is still wired to believe, I have to abandon myself to stay loved. I have to stay small, to stay safe. This is the tragedy of childhood trauma, the places where authenticity once threatened attachment, the moments when being yourself felt dangerous, so your body chose survival. You learned to silence your no. You learned to bury your truth. You learned that disappointing others felt like losing love. You learned that your emotions were too big, too much, too inconvenient. Every time you take a breath and ask, what do I actually need? What is true for me? You begin sending a completely new message to your body. You are safe now. I've got you. I won't abandon you ever again. This is how boundaries become medicine. Boundaries are not just about saying no to toxic people. Boundaries are about saying yes to your nervous system, yes to your rest, yes to your truth, yes to your needs, yes to coming home to yourself. Healing begins the moment you stop abandoning yourself. Carl Jung. Let me be brutally honest. If you were raised in a family where boundaries were disrespected, where your no was punished, ignored, or mocked, then setting boundaries now, as an adult, will feel like actual danger. Your nervous system might shake, your chest might tighten, your throat might close. You'll hear the old voice whisper, they'll leave you. They'll hate you. you're being selfish. But here's what's really happening. It's not danger, it's the activation of the old wound, the wound that once taught you, being myself means losing love. And now, your job is to teach your nervous system something new. I am allowed to take care of me. I am allowed to rest. I am allowed to exist without performing. This is what Jung called individuation, the sacred process of unbecoming everything the world told you to be, so you can finally become who you actually are. And here's the paradox of boundaries. The moment you stop betraying yourself, you stop attracting situations where others betray you. The moment you stop abandoning yourself, you stop feeling abandoned by the world, because your external reality begins to reflect your internal relationship with yourself. Where did you override yourself this week? A conversation, a request, a demand, becomes a brick in the foundation of your healing. Celebrate every win. Even if your voice shakes, even if your hands tremble, even if your heart races, every time you honor yourself, you are reparenting your inner child. You are becoming the safe person, that younger you never had, is simply ready to be released. Because here's what I know with absolute certainty. The real you has never been broken. Buried, yes. Forgotten, maybe. But broken, never. Beneath the anxiety, beneath the perfectionism, beneath the exhaustion, is the real you. The one who knows how to laugh without fear, the one who knows how to rest without guilt, the one who remembers what it means to simply exist without performing. That version of you is not gone. She's not lost, she's just waiting for you to come home. This is the real healing, not becoming someone new, but remembering who you were before the world told you to forget. If this message spoke to something deep inside of you, drop a comment right now that says, I choose myself, I am healing. Let it be your declaration, your commitment. And if you're ready to go deeper on this journey, there's a link below to my ebook, a complete guide to inner healing based on Carl Jung's teachings. Inside, you'll find the tools to reconnect with your inner child, break free from generational trauma, and step into the life you were always meant to live. And if this kind of healing speaks to you, subscribe, stay, because here, we don't just talk about healing, we live it together.